In order to give the story somewhat basic orientation, I think we'll begin on the campus of the University of Ingolstadt, Bavaria, about the year 1770. Many things can start on college campuses, and in a time of great political and social unrest, perhaps young people starting out in life have the clearest and most immediate recognition of the kind of a world into which they're going to be forced by circumstances to live and make their ways. In any event, on this campus, there were a great many groups of young men who took world conditions seriously, who resented the limitations imposed upon their abilities by a traditional and reactionary curriculum, and like many of the young people of today, were convinced that there were better ways of thinking and better ways of doing things than were being taught to them. Already the atmosphere was tense with reformation and revolution, and the general discontent of masses extended even into the comparatively placid atmosphere of Bavaria. At this time, a young man was making quite a mark for himself in the faculty of law of the university. When only 27 years of age, he was made dean of the faculty of law, itself a peculiar and remarkable indication of his own internal abilities. This man's name was Adam Weishaupt, and on May 1st, 1776, just 2 or 3 months before the signing of the Declaration of Independence in the United States, Adam Weishaupt founded the Order of the Illuminati on the campus of the University of Ingolstadt. The Order of the Illuminati began with 5 persons. It began in the rooms of the Dean of Law. Fortunately, it did not remain there very long, for early in its development, Weishaupt came in contact with 2 very important men, Dr. Bode and Baron von Knegel. These 2 powerful intellectuals, leaders in their own worlds, fired with the concept behind this movement through their personal weight and their personal influence, and with a result that was to be quite outstanding and unprecedented. The study of the Illuminist order in its brief history, for it only survived a very few years, tells us that while numerically its membership was never large, the quality of that membership was reminiscent of the Almanach de Gotha. Practically every important man in the progressive motion of European life, including a number of princes and rulers, were members of this fraternity. One of the earliest actions decided upon by Weishaupt was the tremendous necessity for the maintenance of complete secrecy. At that time, Ingolstadt was a nominal Jesuit college, and for many years to come, the struggle between the church and the liberals was to be heated and constant. And so the Illuminati devised an ingenious scheme. They took a map of Europe and they divided it according to a map of the ancient world, restoring in different places the names of then forgotten or least long dead empires and kingdoms. They then divided their own members, assigning to each one a classical name by which it would be almost impossible to identify them. And they wrote their own sort of private historical geography of world situations. For our present purpose, it is important to note that in their new geography, the Illuminati assigned the name Egypt to Austria, and that from that time on, in all of their official documents, references to Egypt were references to Austria. The purposes behind the motion of the Illuminati were several. First and perhaps foremost, the advancement of the right of the human being to think. That intellectual progress should be rescued from a reactionary traditional form and allowed to develop and unfold according to humanist concepts and instincts. Another important phase of their activity was the statement of their slogan or the motto of their society, namely, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And these exact words later became the cry of the French Revolution. There is much to indicate that the French Revolution was influenced by the Illuminists, or the Illuminati, who moved behind the surface picture and whose names were associated with a number of prominent individuals and intellectuals moving in the great era of revolutions. Among the most distinguished of the Illuminists should be included Goethe, the Prince of Saxe-Weimar, the mysterious and elusive Saint Germain, the equally mysterious, though not quite so elusive, Cagliostro, and later Claude Saint Martin, and numerous other leaders in the great struggle for the rights of man. It is believed that this movement affected deeply Rousseau and Voltaire, and later in the United States, both Jefferson and Thomas Paine were accused of being members of this organization. So in a quiet but persuasive manner, the Illuminati spread beneath the surface of European thought. And its principal rituals, ceremonies, and rites were based upon the mysteries of the Greeks and Egyptians. For Weishaupt himself was a classicist, and among his desires was to restore the great philosophical systems of initiation education which dominated the ancient world. He was unable to attain this end, but he still struggled valiantly toward it, and in their brief span, the Illuminati became a most disconcerting force in European politics, largely because they were so difficult to identify, and their presence was universally suspected, whether they were there or not. The power of this organization became almost similar to that of the Ku Klux Klan in the South after the Civil War. It was feared by many, honored by some, and regarded as little short of miraculous by others. It gradually attracted to itself an elaborate symbolism derived partly from alchemy, partly from mythology, partly from Kabbalism, and all the mysterious secret societies of the 16th and 17th centuries. In the midst of all this excitement, Adam Weishaupt became a Freemason, and this was to have a bearing upon the later development. For the lodge that he joined was almost immediately absorbed into the Illuminist movement, and it was not until considerably later, when the great Masonic councils were held to clarify the degrees and rights of the order, that the Illuminists were forced to clarify their Masonic position. at one time George Washington was concerned over the Illuminist problem. And there were a number of groups in this country who used it as a political football. But the lodge of the Illuminists did linger and did have a part to play, and in one of our publications on the Masonic Orders of Fraternity, we point out how this Illuministic movement and related Masonic interests were largely responsible for the revolution in Latin America under Simon Bolivar and the liberation of Italy under Giuseppe Garibaldi and the liberation of Mexico under Miguel Hidalgo. All of these men were connected with what were called the reading societies. And these reading societies were Illuminist groups